looking at the Mahavakyas, and there are a handful of them, and boy, are they a handful. I'm kidding. That was a yoga joke. One Mahavakya is so hum. So hum. It comes from sa, he, she, it, that, and aham. Pardon, the ha is very hard to write. Aham. I am that becomes so hum. I am that. So now we simply need to answer two questions. Who am I and what is that? No big deal. So hum, 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 so hum. So hum, 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 so hum. So hum, so hum. So just to be clear, that's a little melody that has come down with, the JIVAMUKTI lineage, through some of the sort of collective of JIVAMUKTI teachers over the years. That's not necessarily how it was sung. In fact, these probably weren't sung, but they were sort of contemplative mantras, like things to think about for yourself, right? And so to get a little bit closer to the question of I am that, who am I, and what is that, that brings us to another Mahavakya, which is aham. Oh, I told you that how was hard to write. Aham, and brahmasmi is even harder. Oh, I went the wrong way. Gotta watch yourself. Gotta watch yourself with this stuff. Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi means I am Brahman, right? And this one gets us a little closer to understanding what I am. Asmi, we have one of the many obstacles of yoga, as Patanjali says, is asmita. Asmita meaning the sense of having a limited, encapsulated, small, sometimes you say the small self, right? Or my teacher, Bharati, used to have lowercase I am to represent the small self. Sometimes the yogic texts translate it as ego, but I think we run into a lot of problems with that translation, so I try to kind of work around it in certain ways. And And then Brahman, of course, Brah means like to grow or expand. So I am that which is expansive and ever growing. The opposite of asmita, which is the small self. Like I even kind of think of sometimes like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, like that shrinking, shriveling, like his the characters unbridled sort of selfishness and greed and craving has turned him into this like small shrinking tiny being, right? and and we are truly, even though it feels that way sometimes, right, it feels like maybe the world is out to get us sometimes, or it feels like I need to grab more for myself lest there be nothing left at the table. I need to take seconds and thirds and take leftovers and keep it all for myself, even though it feels like that at times, that the truth of the matter is that we are this expansiveness, we are this, aham brahmasmi, expansive self. So then we get to these wonderful concepts of expansiveness, right? What helps us to feel more expansive in our in our consciousness, in our lives, even in our yoga class? What helps us feel expansive rather than limited? One route that I've thought I would go down this month is to think about the things that maybe I can express that expansiveness to the students in. For example, well, we have uttanasana, right? And tan also means to stretch or expand in a certain way, right? So I've thought about maybe doing something regarding that. Or, last week I had a portion of the class where we moved off of our mats rather than, and actually everyone felt very resistant to it. You could tell because everyone stayed there, for a while until I encouraged them again to come off their mats, because there is that sense of like yoga only happens on this little rectangle, right? So could explore in that way, or even explore like some sort of expansive variation, some sort of longer hold, or a bigger shape, or a wider foot. There's ways maybe to bring the feeling of expansiveness into asana, but of course not skipping out on headstand and meditation. I think exploring headstand, uh, crown chakra stuff, and making sure to have enough time for meditation, of course. Also, also, this beautiful idea that Nicholas has of distillation, right? The idea that, it obviously took me many, 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 many words to get across one distilled sort of concept, right? Aham brahmasmi. And that if only we could sort of pull out or distill out all of the, not only impurities, but all of the Jessica Stickler's brain projecting onto the teachings, kind of a thing, right? Because of course I'm going to interject my own, projections and ideas. But if we could like start to really distill down to the very, pure and essential part of things, right? So bringing it back to asana practice, right? Can we distill down? Can I, as a teacher, distill down to like maybe the very classical shapes? Maybe I can distill a concept in asana down to its most essential form, right? Maybe sticking with just connection to the earth as that essential concentrated idea. I had another idea for distillation. No, I'm forgetting it. But anyway, so kind of how can we express these concepts through the classroom experience, through chanting, through asana, through meditation, through the music, right? Finding ways to express the fundamental idea through all of the tenets of the practice. So a couple of essential like sort of reading material, if you're like me and you like to hit the books as soon as the focus of the month comes out. I am that. This very much, it contains all of this and expounds on it a bit more, and from the perspective of students questioning a teacher, so you get this sort of back and forth, and it sometimes feels like you're the one asking the questions. And of course the Upanishads, which is a bit of a, that's a big bite, that's a big chunk to, take on. But there's, several Upanishads which contain the Mahavakyas, so you can focus on those, or even read little parts of it. Even the very first line of the Chandogya Upanishad, which is where, it's where a different one comes from. Tatvamasi comes from. Even the very first line, it says, Om is Brahman, and Brahman is Om, right? So even just taking Om as the inspiration, or as the chanting, or as the sort of foundation for one of the classes. So, I remember what I wanted to say about distillation. Well, if you've made it this far in the video, here's one more thought about bringing distillation, the concept of distilling it down into the asana practice, which is that at one point, David Life made a very good point about, we were in a workshop with him, and he made a very good point about, sometimes practice dropping all of your personal sort of flair. I think he even used the word flair into your practice. So at that time, I was doing it myself, and I was also noticing other people were just like adding a lot of stuff into the sun salutations. It was like reach up and fold forward Uttanasana, and everyone had a lot of expression and we had added a lot of stuff in between. And in that particular practice, he was saying, what's the most direct way to get from Tadasana to reach the arms up? And what's the most sort of pared down way, where I'm not adding a bunch of Jessica Stickler ideas into it, or I'm not adding a bunch of, it's just the distillation of the movement from point A to point B, right? And that is actually kind of a part of the way that we work with vinyasa in the JIVAMUKTI method, is like noticing those places where I'm inserting a different idea into it, and just trying to kind of clean it up and make it as direct and plain and distilled as possible. And then what can we, what insight does that bring to us? Yeah. So those are my ideas for this month. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this is beneficial for you. And if not, then I hope you have some other wonderful ideas to bring into your classes. See you soon.